Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video where I talk about my favourite 3 Patrick Troughton stories from Doctor Who. Like with my William Hartnell video, I'm only including stories that either exist incompletely or have had an official animated release, but there's going to be one exception to this in this video. Again, like my William Hartnell video, this isn't in any particular order. So the first story we're going to talk about is Power of the Daleks. This was the most important story of the show, as it was the first time the audience had seen anyone other than William Hartnell as the Doctor. So if this story had failed, if Patrick Troughton hadn't done well, then Doctor Who would have been cancelled, and most of us probably would never have seen it. Plot-wise, if you've seen New Who but not Classic Who, think of Victory of the Daleks, the Series 5 episodes with Matt Smith and Winston Churchill, but a million times better. Basic elements of the plot are the same, with the Daleks pretending to be good, the Doctor knowing they're up to something but not being able to convince the others, and all the while the Daleks are just trying to rebuild their army. The Daleks also have very similar lines. In Power of the Daleks, they keep saying, "I am your servant," and in Victory, they keep saying, "I am your soldier." Ben and Polly are great in this story. You've got Polly, who's very sure that this random man is the Doctor, and then you've got Ben, who's a lot more sceptical. Ben and Polly are 2 of my favourite companions, so them being in any story is a plus. On to the guest cast. Lesterson is by far the standout character other than the main 3. He starts out as this scientist trying to work out what the Daleks are, and he's convinced that they will be able to help the humans in what they have to do. And then there's this little madman who seems to have an unjustified hatred of the Daleks and is doing everything he can to destroy them. And then, as you go through the story, he slowly realises that the Doctor is right and slowly descends into madness. You've got another character in the story who is just hungry for power and gets the Governor and Deputy Governor out of the way and thinks he has the Daleks if anyone turns against him. But then, when the Daleks expand their army from 4 to many, many more, they show the true colours and turn on him. There's so much more I can talk about. One of the best cliffhangers in Doctor Who history, not the best, that's still part 3 of Caves of Androzani, but one of the best cliffhangers comes from this story. There's a cliffhanger where the Doctor is desperately trying to convince everyone that the Daleks are dangerous and must be destroyed. And then there's this Dalek saying louder and louder, "I am your servant. I am your servant." On to the second story then, and the slight exception to the rule I made, and that is the Web of Fear. Technically, this shouldn't be here, as Part 3 is still missing, but it did get a DVD release, with Part 3 using the soundtrack and telesnaps, and there is an animated version of it on YouTube, so I'm going to include it. Web of Fear shows the first signs of what would come in the Pertwee era. You'll have an Earth invasion story set in vaguely modern day. I say vaguely because, thanks to Mordred Undead, amongst other things, no one knows when unit stories are actually set. But you have the Doctor working with a military group to stop the invasion, and then you have the first appearance of Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, except he's not a brigadier in this story, he's a colonel. You also have the return of Professor Travers, who appeared in the mostly still missing story, The Abominable Snowmen, and I like seeing him work with the Doctor, someone he already knew, although for Travers it happened 40 years ago. Another thing I liked about the story is that everyone, apart from the Doctor, Jamie, Victoria, and possibly Travers, are suspects. It's made very clear early on that someone in the group is a mole working with the Great Intelligence, but I don't know who. I think, when you're first watching it, you're supposed to suspect Lethbridge Stewart, along with everyone else, there's a scene where someone says it's got to be either Jamie or Lethbridge Stewart. However, I had already seen most of the Brigadier stories before watching this, so that sort of ruined it, as I knew it couldn't be the Brigadier. And then, when you find out who the actual mole is, it turns out that the character actually died quite early on in the story, and we've just been watching an animated corpse controlled by the Great Intelligence for the whole story. Also, it's set on London Underground, which is a plus for me. And the last story I want to talk about is The Invasion. I said the Web of Fear contains the first elements of the Pertwee era, and The Invasion was very much the pilot of the Pertwee era. Again, it's an Earth invasion story. This time it's the Cybermen. You have the return of Lethbridge Stewart, who now is a Brigadier, and you have the first appearance of Unit, the first appearance of Sergeant Benton, but Peter Corporal in this story. The thing about this story is that it's 8 parts long, one of the longest stories of Classic Who, but there's no moment where it starts to get boring. Tobias Vaughan is an amazing one-off human villain who's working with the Cybermen, and then you have the Cybermen themselves, who are amazing even though they don't look that great. Jamie and Zoe are great in the story. Jamie's my second favourite companion of all time, so any story with him in is great. Zoe also gets a lot to do in this. The scene where she blows up the computer is a great scene. So there we are, those are my 3 favourite Patrick Troughton stories, but comment down below what you think. Thanks for watching everyone, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can follow my Instagram by clicking on the link in the description, but that's all for today. I will see you next week.